Some even agree to help Sylvie and Loki with an insane plan. She surmises that the real puppet master is likely hiding at the true end of time, guarded by Alioth. If she can enchant the monster, they can get through him to reach the true timekeeper. She gives Mobius her stolen time twister so he can return to the TVA. Then she and Loki head through Alioth and find who they're looking for. He who remains. The strange man explains everything. Eons ago, a variant of himself lived on Earth in the 31st century as a scientist. He discovered that there were other universes out there, and he discovered how to traverse them. So he worked with variants of himself to trade knowledge and technology. But some of the variants were not so kind, and saw each world as just another world to conquer. This led to a multiversal war, which only ended when he discovered that tears in reality created a creature called Alioth, capable of consuming time and space itself. He weaponized the creature to prune the branches of time and narrow things down to one sacred timeline. Then he created the TVA to ensure things stayed that way. As the sole survivor of his many variants, he became known as He Who Remains. After millions of lifetimes, he's tired. He's ready for someone else to take over, and he identified this pair of Lokis as the ones for the job. They had two choices: kill him as originally intended, or take over the TVA and let him retire. But, he warns, if they kill him, that just means the defense against his many variants will be gone. The multiversal war will repeat, and he will once again be its sole survivor, meaning his death would instantly be undone. Sylvie accuses him of lying and readies her blade, but Loki isn't so sure. If he's telling the truth, maybe they should take a minute to think about it. Sylvie is disgusted. They're so close to freedom from the TVA's rule, and Loki is enticed by the promise of a throne? But Loki promises her that's not it. He just wants her to be okay. And his expression says he's telling the truth. They kiss, until Sylvie pushes him through a portal to the TVA using a time twister she grabbed off the desk, then kills He Who Remains. Back at the TVA, Loki frantically approaches Mobius, only to find Mobius has no idea who he is, and he notices a statue resembling He Who Remains. It seems Loki is in the TVA's past, when He Who Remains ran things himself before instituting the myth of timekeepers. Ouroboros, or OB for short, head of repairs and advancement, sheds some light. Loki is time-slipping, spontaneously blinking between the past and present, perhaps a side effect of Sylvie using He Who Remains TemPad on him. There is a cure, but it is risky. At the heart of the TVA is the temporal loom, which refines raw time into physical timeline. If Mobius activates an extractor near the loom, at the same time Loki prunes himself, Loki will be released from time, and the extractor will pull him into the present, assuming the untested equipment or temporal radiation don't kill them both. And they're on a tight deadline. Once Mobius and B-15 spread word the timekeepers were fake, the TVA halted pruning, and after He Who Remains' death, the timelines are branching rapidly. It's becoming too much for the loom to handle. If it keeps going, everything could be destroyed. While they figure out a solution, OB must shut the blast doors to protect the TVA. And once those doors are closed, even if Mobius pulls Loki out of raw time, they won't be able to get back inside, and the radiation will kill them. It's now or never. But as they prepare for the dangerous procedure, Loki time-slips again. This time, he goes to the future, and the TVA is falling apart. Something he'll need to worry about later. Right now, he needs to find a time stick and prune or miss the window. He frantically searches, but only finds Sylvie. What is she doing here? Loki doesn't have a chance to ask before someone prunes him. The extractor pulls him into the present, launching him and Mobius back into the TVA just before the doors close. Who did Loki the favor of pruning him? What was Sylvie doing in the TVA's Sylvie's doomed future? Both mysteries. To find answers, Loki and Mobius track down Sylvie, who is trying to live a normal life away from the TVA on a new branch she's decided to call home. But that and every other branch is at risk. Not everyone at the TVA was convinced to stop pruning. General Dox and her Minutemen have gone rogue, attempting to prune every branch but the sacred timeline. Working together, Loki, Mobius, and Sylvie stop them, but not before they've pruned many branches, erasing the countless lives who resided in them. And there's no silver lining. Despite their pruning, the loom is still reaching its limit, putting every timeline at risk. OB is working on a retrofit to expand its capacity, but there's a problem. They'll have to open the containment doors to reach the loom, and as a security measure, those doors are coded to He Who Remains' temporal aura. Without him, they won't open. They'll need to get a hold of one of his variants, and Loki has an idea how. While time-slipping, he overheard a conversation between He Who Remains and Mobius's old boss, Renslayer. The two must be working together. They track her TemPad and locate them in 1893, where they find the variant, Victor Timely. Before his death, He Who Remains arranged for Renslayer and his AI assistant, Miss Minutes, to find this variant, and prepare him to lay the foundation for He Who Remains' return. They found Timely as a child in 1868 and gave him a copy of the TVA manual, so by now he's become an inventor and expert in all things temporal. Loki and Mobius bring Timely to the TVA, while Sylvie gets a little revenge. Renslayer is the one who pruned her world and sent her on the run as a child. So Sylvie sends Renslayer on a one-way trip to the end of time, where Renslayer finds He Who Remains' corpse and Miss Minutes, who clues her in on a secret. Renslayer once commanded He Who Remains' army, but when he instituted the myth of the Timekeepers, he erased her memory, along with everyone else at the TVA. Minutes suggests they forget about resurrecting He Who Remains, and instead take over themselves. They return to the present to recruit an army, starting with General Dox and the Minutemen. Hunter X5 joins up. The rest, who refuse, are crushed to death in a time cube. Then they kidnap Timely, but don't get much further than that. OB takes down Miss Minutes by restarting her to factory settings by rebooting the whole system, which, as a side effect, also shuts down the dampeners that prevent the use of magic at the TVA. Good news for Sylvie, who then uses her magic to outwit Renslayer and prune her. Where Elias approaches. As the loom approaches meltdown, Loki realizes that the future he slipped to part is no longer the future. It is now. He finds his past self, the one without a time stick who someone pruned, and Loki realizes he is that someone. He prunes his past self, and with they have Timely unlock the doors, but they're too late. Radiation levels have exploded, ripping Timely apart the moment he steps outside. Hope is lost. The loom explodes, as Loki and the others await the end of all things. But somehow, Loki is alive. His time-slipping has returned. He has no control over it, but it sends him to the past on branches where his friends reside, living normal lives before their recruitment to the TVA. On one branch, Mobius is a single father named Don who sells jet skis. On another, OB is Doug, a science fiction writer and theoretical physics professor, who uses his expertise to help Loki. He suggests that Loki must be controlling his time-slipping subconsciously. Why else would he be visiting his friend's branches specifically? But hard as Loki tries, he can't seem to control it. So instead, Plan B. He hands OB a copy of the TVA manual so he can use it to build a TemPad. Then, if they gather all his friends together, the ones who were there before the loom exploded, their collective temporal aura would point the TemPad to that moment, and Loki could travel back there. He collects his friends, Mobius, B-15, and the others. All except Sylvie. She doesn't want to be a part of this. She just wants to live a normal life. Yes, she is being selfish, but so is Loki. He just uprooted the lives of his friends for this crusade, not to save the world, but because Loki doesn't want to be alone. He realizes she's right. He returns to OB and the others, and he tells them it's over. They can all go home. But Sylvie changes her mind when the world starts tearing apart around her. It seems Loki was right. If they don't fix the loom, every branch will end, and none of them will have lives to go back to anyway. Except, they're too late. Sure, Loki gathered his friends, but reality is falling apart. Things are disappearing, including the Tempad. Reality collapses, and his friends die. Until another shred of hope. Loki slips back in time. He's learned to control the time slipping. It's just like their plan to use people's temporal aura to pinpoint a time and place. He controls his time slipping not by focusing on when or where, but on who. He returns to before the loom meltdown. He replays the event again and again to no avail. Timely dies every time. Loki spends centuries learning everything OB knows, and returns with enough knowledge to perfect their plan. This time, Victor makes it. He installs the multiplier, but it doesn't matter. The timelines are branching infinitely. They can expand the loom all they want. It'll never be enough. Loki slips through time in search of answers, and gets them from He Who Remains, who reveals the truth. The loom is not melting down. It is activating a failsafe. When it reaches capacity, the loom is designed to automatically prune every branch except the sacred timeline, erasing the countless lives who reside on them. Loki could destroy the loom to spare their lives, but that would also spare the lives of He Who Remains variants, which means multiversal war, which means the destruction of everything. It seems Loki has two choices. Destroy all those other branches, but keep the sacred timeline, or trigger the multiversal war, destroying everything, including the sacred timeline. He travels time to seek guidance. Mobius tells him about duty, and doing what's right, even if it's difficult. Sylvie advocates for free will. Destroy the loom, and even if we all die, let us die fighting. She grew up in apocalypses, and knows that sometimes it's okay to destroy something. If there's hope, you can replace it with something better. And that is what Loki does. He returns to that moment before the loom's apparent meltdown. This time, he steps outside himself. The temporal radiation should kill him, but he is a god. With no magic dampener after OB's reboot, he can protect himself. He destroys the loom, and just as He Who Remains promised, the branches begin to die. But Loki is a god. He grabs the branches and uses his magic to keep them alive. He carries them to the end of time and sits on He Who Remains' throne, taking his place as steward of the multiverse. The TVA gets back to work with a new vision, tracking down He Who Remains variants. Mobius retires, finally visiting that branch to see his past life. And Loki continues to sit, keeping the multiverse alive. In place of one sacred timeline, he's created a tree formed of many branches. And on one such branch, the world is recovering from half its population disappearing for 5 years before suddenly returning. A phenomenon which people call the blip. But not everyone is reunited with lost loved ones. Wanda Maximoff, after losing her parents to a missile and her brother to Ultron, now mourns Vision. A couple of weeks after his death, Wanda storms into the headquarters of SWORD, the Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. There, Tyler Hayward leads a project to resurrect and weaponize Vision. Wanda demands his body so she can properly bury it, but they can't hand over $3 billion worth of vibranium just for her to put it in the dirt. She leaves with nothing but more grief. She visits a plot of land in Westview, New Jersey, where Vision had intended to one day build them a home. The grief is too much, enough to trigger an explosion of chaos magic, which engulfs the surrounding town in a hex, and within it creates a fabricated reality, one where Vision is alive, and where the townsfolk play the roles of characters in a sitcom called WandaVision. In Sokovia, the Dick Van Dyke Show and other classics gave her and her family comfort. Now living in it does the same. The Hex is powerful. Even Wanda herself is unaware at first that the reality is false, and when she suspects the truth, her mind turns away from it, preferring this false reality to one filled with grief and anguish. Outside the Hex, Tyler Hayward leads the effort to understand it. The team includes once intern, now scientist, Darcy Lewis, FBI agent Jimmy Woo, and Monica Rambeau, daughter of Carol Danvers' best friend. She had a job at SWORD but disappeared in the blip. Upon returning, she found her mother dead from cancer, and rather than succumb to grief, she returned to work right away. Though many are cautious of the Hex, she enters it. Like everything else which crosses the boundary, her clothes are transformed to fit the production design of Wanda's sitcom. Her true personality is buried under waves of Wanda's grief, and like a puppet, she plays the role of another character. In the Maximoff home, Wanda and Vision play husband and wife, and like a sitcom, they face the requisite trials and tribulations, including pregnancy, which in this reality comes to term in a matter of hours rather than months. Before they know it, Wanda and Vision are raising twins named Tommy and Billy. As she and Monica watch the twins, Wanda mentions how she herself is a twin. She had a brother named Pietro. For a moment, the spell is broken, and Monica breaks character. He was killed by Ultron, wasn't he? Wanda acts quickly to eject Monica from the Hex. She will not allow anyone to ruin the illusion of WandaVision. And with Monica gone, they turn to their other neighbor, Agnes, for help with the children. Outside, Monica reports that the Hex is being perpetuated by Wanda, causing Tyler to see her as a villain. But Monica felt Wanda's pain she knows well herself after losing her mother. She doesn't believe Wanda is doing this on purpose. They should work with her to resolve the Hex. But Tyler chooses a different approach: antagonism. Anything they send into the Hex gets transformed to fit the reality. When they sent a drone into her 60s era sitcom, it was transformed into a toy helicopter. So they change tactics. Once WandaVision evolves into an 80s style sitcom, they send in an 80s style drone. But without Monica's knowledge, it's been armed by Tyler. It fires at Wanda, but only manages to piss her off, and she ejects the drone, just like she did Monica. Meanwhile, Darcy tries something as well. She sends an email, brand new technology in the 80s setting. In it, she warns about the Maximoff anomaly and its effect on Westview residents. Curious, Vision investigates the mind of a coworker and realizes the truth: that everyone in the town is under Wanda's control, with their true personalities buried. Vision tries to confront Wanda, but she denies everything and just tries to move on. Things only get more hectic when Wanda's dead brother Pietro shows up, though he wears a different face. Soon, it's time for the WandaVision Halloween episode. The twins have aged up to 10 years old, exhibit superpowers inherited from their parents, and the show's taken on a Malcolm in the Middle aesthetic. In the midst of it all, Pietro sees right through the illusions and asks Wanda how she's doing all this. What kind of magic allows
$1 per second, and to make $1 million would take you about 11 and a half days. But to make $1 billion